Joan Llort is an oceanographer and biogeochemist, however you pronounce that. No. And Salva is how do you say? Microbial ecologist. Amazing. So, yes, Euphonic Pro is about the artists, the cultural workers, the curators, cultural operators, as Annette was telling a minute ago, but also about other disciplines that are very creative and sometimes very artistic, and also disciplines that can give us insights on topics that in the world of art we talk about a lot, sometimes without having much knowledge or just a tiny knowledge, which is climate change, climate emergency, sustainability, and other words like that. So what are we going to do, Joan?
Yeah, don't say more words. The idea is that we want words. So we'll now give you some post-its to all of you, and we like you to write down any word related to the climate crisis in the context of art. So we don't want polar bears.
Look for your pens and share them.
Yep.
So if somebody doesn't have a pen, like you ask your partner.
In the large sense of art, so it's either production or creation of art or anything, or even your personal experience with the heat wave. Anyway, but something that relates to you, the climate crisis.
I think that I have a pen that I can share also. Well, we're going to give you, what, 7 minutes?
7 minutes.
Okay, 7 is a lot, yeah.
Let's think about this not as a round table, but as a group of therapy against eco-anxiety, right? So let's play a little bit around this concept.
Ai, n'hem d'escriure nosaltres? Que n'hem d'escriure nosaltres? jo també en vull un de boli. O sigui que també n'hem d'escriure nosaltres. Ups, no. Bueno, espera. No, cuantas queráis. Sí, it can be more than one. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure we're going to have time to discuss all of them, but yeah. Can be, pot ser més d'una, si vols. Sí. No sé si les parlarem totes, saps? Però és això.
Sí, tots oberts.
Sí, perquè si se van passejant entre la gent, això ja és...
No, això no durarà tot el rato. If somebody needs a pen, the people who have the power of the pen can share it with the others. The power of the pen.
Right. Extinction.
I need a pen. Sorry. Perdona.
Uh. Gràcies.
Vale. Ja estem? Ja en tenim prou. Bueno, no sé si hi ha més gent, però... Vale, aquí un boli... no sé què és. Gràcies.
Aguas radioactives.
Aguas radiactives.
Sí.
Pots enganxar-lo on vulguis. Sí, ara el que t'he Vale, molt bé. Més? Uau, quin món. Que guai, gràcies.
Estaves col·laboratiu, eh?
Ah, aquí n'hi ha més, mira.
Ja està, ja està.
Ah, sí.
Vale, ok.
Sí, sí.
Uau, mare de Déu. Bueno, no tenen temps de consumir tot això, però bueno.
Però està guai perquè després...
Sí, sí, sí.
Extinció d'espècies.
Vale, ja està. Vinga, prou. Prou.
Enough.
Okay, please stop thinking. That's fine. We have enough.
Ja està.
No sé com farem.
Stop writing. Time to stop writing.
Okay.
Ja ho tenim i només hem gastat 4 minuts. We're good.
Ja,
Total.
ja, perquè...
M'encanta.
Okay, so we'll start.
Quiet down. Let's start.
Great, awesome. Thank you very much. There's many words. I'm not sure we'll have time to go through all of them. The idea we got is how to make this useful for art production in the large sense, because something, for me as a consumer of art, what I realized as a consumer but with a background in climate science, very often I see art that says that address climate science or climate crisis in a very naive ways or in a very biased way. So the climate crisis is a very complex issue, and I think that we as researchers need the art to convey this complex message, but somewhere between the communication between art and science, this complex message is lost, and then we often just repeat very simple messages that don't help anybody. So the way we planned this is how to make it useful. Of course, I'm a scientist, so I went to the classical framework of climate science. And climate science basically works on these two words, on adaptation and mitigation. Adaptation is more a passive thing, so it's more like painting walls on white and I don't know, putting more shades in the city, more water for the people. That's something that we assume that's going to be hotter. Let's see how we can cope with this hot. Mitigation is an active role. Mitigation is let's reduce emissions. Let's change our ways of consumption. It's like let's make climate change less worse. Both are important because the fact is that we are very far in the climate crisis. It means that we need adaptation. In an ideal world, only with mitigation. If we had started at the 70s, we had enough, but that wasn't the case. So right now we need both. We need adaptation. I mean, right now we're adapting here to this massive heat wave. And then there's also trap words. And trap words this is something that we created, but the idea is, and it comes from an idea of an activist from Valencia here in Spain, that he always talks about sustainability as a trap word, in the sense that the capitalism is phagocyting some of these words, and these words have no sense and right now against the climate crisis. So any product in the supermarket is sustainable, and that's nonsense. So we'll also like to identify some of these trap words, and just, we're not saying that you can use it, it's just that when you use it, be careful that you use it in a correct meaning. And otherwise, we're just creating more greenwashing. And another way for me, the idea is that if any artistic activity you'd like to do, where the climate crisis is an important part of this activity, you can have in mind this equation, let's say it, of impact. That's widely used in climate hazard science. And basically it means that the impact you're going to have, and very often the dangerous impact, will depend on the vulnerability and the risk. An easy way of understanding this is that in Japan, for instance, have a high risk of earthquakes, but they have low vulnerability because their buildings are ready for coping with the earthquakes. It doesn't mean that the impact is low or it's medium. While in IT they have high vulnerability with very poor constructions and high risk of earthquakes, and that gives you a large impact. So if you want to reduce the impact, you need to go either in one or the other. When we go in the sense of the art, I think that's what we'll try to look at for some of these ideas and go to vulnerability. For instance, I just read eco-anxiety. Eco-anxiety plays vulnerability. If we can help people to cope with eco-anxiety, we're actually increasing or decreasing their vulnerability. We're making them more resilient to the changes that will come and that will changing the impact. That's basically the idea. So now the idea was like to go through the words and try to organize the words in these different classification, hoping that can be useful for any future activity or just if it's fun, it's enough. But the idea is that we need to decide it all together. So we'll discuss about the words all together and why we see the adaptation and mitigation.
We see a lot of fear in you
Fear.
guys. Resistance is not fear.
You can start. With
Yeah. But I mean, we have different types of work. I don't know if it's, some of them are not clearly going to adaptation or mitigation, probably.
Yeah.
But I think we can use your words to try to understand a little bit the context, because probably the words are going in another direction than this adaptation mitigation scheme. Because if we go for apocalypse is not adaptation or mitigation, right? It's just people dying, and we don't want that.
Well, I think we can put all these very doom ones, like world water war. I love that. That's what you do. All these parts of vulnerability. This is what I was thinking.
Doom.
What else? So anything that is on the psychological side, this is the vulnerability. Rage. Well, terror. This terror.
Pandemonium. This I like it.
Uncertainty.
We live in hell. This is a very good one.
Well, but that's about the euphonic. Not
I don't
about
know
the
if in
funny.
this room or in the whole world, but
There is sadness and autodestruction.
sadness and autodestruction. This is okay, let's stop it. We're going to cry here.
Yeah.
No hope. Hope, no hope.
There's hope. Heat, apocalypse, another
Okay.
one.
So, how to deal with this from I don't know, from an artistic point of view. That's your job. But from a science point of view, and particularly from the social science, there's a concept that I think is very interesting that is called wicked problems. A wicked problem is a wicked where any solution you propose will have issues. So you change something, but by changing this, the solution is not perfect. It's not ideal. And the climate crisis is like the most big wicked problem we have. So we can solve the climate crisis, but to solve it, we'll reduce either we'll have societies that are more unequal, either we'll reduce our comfortable, we'll be less comfortable, we have a life that is not so nice maybe. So the idea of addressing wicked problems is to try to explain to people that there are solutions, but that these solutions they're not perfect and they have drawbacks, and that we need to accept some of these drawbacks against the survival. So this is one of the ways, at least for me personally, as a sufferer of eco-anxiety, it helped me a lot to cope with eco-anxiety and to reduce vulnerability. So that would be, for instance, a way of instead of, well, I know if some artistic production wants to focus on doom, why not? That's completely an option. But if we want to build something, you want to create a response, you want to create an impact that might be positive, a way of conveying these complex messages of non-perfect solutions, that could be a way. But we're open to other ones. Any ideas how to cope with eco-anxiety or...
Yeah, if somebody has an idea, I have the microphone and I can pass it on to you. How to cope with eco-anxiety? Honestly, I have no idea. I have no idea, but yeah, but Yolanda has one.
Well, we know that a lot of you work with nature sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, like as we were talking, it's more like you do just a little thing that is gonna make you feel a bit better. It's not the solution, but if you, I don't know, if you have the opportunity to recycle better or to produce your own compost, to grow your food, that's great. Or if you can reduce your plastic consumption, these little things, they are greenwashing, but in a way, you cannot do anymore. So it's like you can relax. And
Okay,
then we were all yesterday like playing with our air conditioning in the hotel and enjoying it. Like, yeah, please enjoy your life. I mean, like,
I did that too.
That would be from, that's from the personal side, but from the artistic production side, from the artistic creation, do you have any ideas of?
Yeah.
I don't know, you could create a festival of just hedonism and say, no, we need people to spend 5 days without thinking about climate crisis, for instance. And that could be an option too. And maybe the last day tell them, okay, now that you enjoyed these 5 days, now please do something for climate. I don't know, I just created something from my mind. But you know, anything is accepted. But do you have, or have you seen any, I don't know, artistic activities that you think that improve this or reduce this vulnerability?
No, actually, from the point of artistic works that that deal with eco-anxiety or climate change, climate crisis, etc., it's always more like in trying to reflect what's going on and explain what's going on than proposing ways in which can be solved, which nobody has an answer for that.
But then we are here to inspire you guys.
Yes.
Okay? So then, because that's what you want, okay, to be inspired. So,
Green-inspired.
people working in climate change, normally if I see are dedicated to climate change, I see some kind of ideas, normally focusing on the problem, right? Of climate change, heat waves, drought, etc. But we are normally approaching these as just climate change, not what is causing climate change. We are normally not speaking about this. This is a very good one. Normally, we are not speaking about extractivism. Normally, we are not speaking about the limits to economic growth. We are not speaking about other problems that are the ones that are causing climate change. Climate change is the symptom, it's not the sickness. The sickness is our way of producing things and consuming these things. So this is one idea that I think it's important that we keep in mind, or a take-home message. Then we have the second way that we were speaking, that is solutions to this. So we know that we have ultra-extractivism, climate change going on. So, and here there is another keyword for this, and was degrowth. I don't remember where is it? In here, right? Degrowth. Why? Because the problem is our economical or socioeconomic way of organizing things. A movement coming from the ecologism, economics, ecological economics is degrowth. So if the problem is that we cannot grow forever, we cannot grow forever in a limited planet, the only way that we can really move things back and live in a really sustainable place, and not sustainability as capitalism is telling us, is to probably move to a society with smaller economies. Is this possible? This is the discussion, and this is probably the important thing that we need to discuss as a whole society, right? Is this possible? Do we want this? Do we want to live with less but in a happier place or not? Or we are so fucking addicted to everything, our phones, our way of life, our everything, traveling, etc., that we cannot do this in, obviously, our rich societies. We are not speaking about other places, right? This is inequality. This is a different type of, probably is a deeper speech. But this is important that to cope with these limits to growth, degrowth as a possibility. And the last point that I wanted to discuss with you is the need of new narratives. And this is where you enter in the game. We need, from the ecologist movements, they are asking for new narrative because the mainstream narrative are dystopic, doomers, we are going to die, don't look up, etc., right? So we need new narratives that create worlds that are worth living for and that are more sustainable and that in reality can solve the problem. And they are not an utopia. They can exist. So this is the way that probably artists, writers, cinema, whatever, they can start producing these new products, artistic products, where these new worlds can exist, and how we get there is not just the final, it's how we get there, the transition, to create this cultural revolution that can make us achieve the final objective, that it's not to die. This is the objective, and not to kill the whole biodiversity in the world, right? So this is more or less...
in the sense of narratives, I think that you mentioned you can create narratives through the art production, but you can also create narratives through the art organization. So by organizing a festival in following some rules, where you show that you can conduct a festival with having this degrowth criteria in mind. And that's a very strong narrative, actually. Maybe more strong than some messages. Yeah, yes, please, Miriam.
Miriam has something to say.
Very good, Miriam. Thank you.
I'm sure there's many different configuration that would be possible for this like image of degrowth, but like, is this something that the scientific community has tackled? Like, what would it have to look like in, like, if, for example, every human had the same kind of access to energy, like what it would look like individually? Like, is there like, I don't know, projections of what that could look like?
Yeah, degrowth is a very open thing, just like we can think about degrowth as an activist movement. We can think about degrowth as a part of science in ecological economics or ecologism or whatever. There are different options in here. Normally, the thing is to work less hours, divide or change the GDP concept by other measures of progress. Progress is another trap word normally because we only think about progress as scientific or technical progress, where progress is more education, more health for everybody. This is progress also for a society, and we are only measuring progress across GDP. So probably what we see from ecological economics is less energy consumption, but maintaining some of the benefits of our society, some of the technology. We are not going to live in a cave, but it's true that there's room for new ways of imagination of this future. But I think that the whole, or the big picture of how it's going to look like is to have more with less. More time with our families, with our friends, probably less working hours, less mobility, but of more quality. So this kind of concepts, right? I don't know if I answer your question, but you can read Georgios Kallis is working a lot in the, speaking about the limits and how this is working. I can give you a few names and a few books that from ecological economics, they are rethinking society.
For me, one of the, something I really like from Ophonic is that I think that it already applies some form of degrowth. For me, the one that is very clear for me is the one that you propose that artists come with something that has already been presented before. So that's degrowth. That's saying we don't ask you for new stuff. Let's reuse what you've done because you can still create impact in a different audience. Why not? So let's not obsess on the new things and create and growth and growth and growth. Let's use what we already have and let's use it as much as you can. That's a degrowth. Actually, it's what our grandparents used to do. It's basically,
Actually, if for artworks, like normally artists and also curators, and they are pressed for having new things to show like every minute. Wouldn't be art better or with more quality if we had more time and we would be able just to tour works more, show them more? There are many cases. This is especially like very dramatic in the world of dance, that there are pieces that take months and months and months to make, and they are only performed once. That's not sustainable. That's not going to change the world, maybe, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But it's important that when you do it, it's important to explain it for this thing of the narrative, because then the festival is providing the narrative of how the growth can be applied without losing artistic production, for instance. But so it's important to be conscious of which of course, and I like this incoherence here, because anything we have is incoherent in our society. I mean, we all have smartphones and we all have more or less drive cars. We need to accept this incoherence, and that's obvious. But we need also to reinforce these acts that we know that improve the narratives, because what has been demonstrated, and that like going against all this dooming, is that people listen to peers. So if you've doing something that is good for the climate crisis and you explain it, this thing is much better. And we have much more impact than reading any book or watching TV in any documentary or anything. So we only change our behaviors because our peers change behaviors, not because we see graphs of the global temperature. So scientists, after probably too late, realize that data science is not changing behaviors. And that's why there's a current interest in science to go to artists and to go to other media, because you know how to convey messages much better than we do.
Than we do.
Yeah.
We do it very badly.
Really bad, yeah.
But following your question, I think it's very important to think about more localized economies, right? Everything should be from an area that it's 100, 200 kilometers far away, as far as is possible, right? We are not going to break commerce with or tourism in a big way, but we need to do this somehow. We need to probably produce what we can and just import, export the things that are required or very necessary to our societies that can come from far away. But in today's economies, these import, export are very crazy. You are producing something, sending it to the other part of the world, and importing the same product from another country. This is kind of crazy, right? So these kind of things can be improved.
We have 5 minutes.
Okay, so maybe to end, there's this, I really like it, this optimismo desmedido, like uncontrolled optimism, or how you say it, optimism without control, and the other one is rage. And that was for the article you shared with me. So we were discussing if it's more useful to have hope on the future or to have rage against the present. Apparently, psychologists say that rage is more useful. And, and very often ecologism has fallen into the hope, into talking about very beautiful nature, like these fantasies of that nature is everything fantastic, and it is not the case. So maybe a way of also of addressing these topics is how can we raise rage in our audience? And for me, there's a very clear case that for me it always raised rage inside me, is plastics. We are kind of obsessed with plastics, and I mean, my kid is obsessed with that the ocean is full of plastics, for instance, and he only tells me that you need to recycle, you need to recycle. You need to imagine the plastics crisis as you are in a bathtub that is filling of water, and recycling is like having a spoon and trying to take out this water. So if you're in a bathtub that is filling of water, what do you do? Sorry? But there's no plug. Sorry, there's no plug. Yeah, because you're on a planet. There's no way out. So plastic is there. Close the tap. Close the tap. It's a production problem. It's a production. So here in Spain, it's very clear. So the major producer of plastic in Spain is also the major recycling industry. So they want you to use plastic, of course, because it's their business, it's their double business. So how we change that, I don't know. That's probably up to politics. But we can explain these things. We can explain these messages, like saying there are bad guys here in this history. It's not only like, oh, we're all doomed, we're all super bad, and we're destroying ourselves. No, there are people who are destroying our lifestyles. And I think it's very important to change this message, because it's, otherwise you always find, actually, the idea of carbon footprint was created by an oil industry, and was created by them to give out their responsibility. Like, so it was BP actually, and said, let's give every citizen the responsibility. This way, it's not our fault that we're taking petrol. They are asking for this petrol. And that's very Machiavellic. And it's important that people know this kind of workings. And there's people who is working against all these issue. And I don't know how we need to point them, but we need to point them. And I think that art can also help on that. I know you want to finish with something else.
No, I think that in the future, when you produce artwork, you have these two options. You can produce hope in your audience, or you can produce rage. You choose. I mean, both options probably are correct.
Yeah,
none of them are
Hope.
incorrect. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Rage is very powerful.
very powerful.
And I think that especially, well, in all the arts, but especially in music, the music that it's powerful and rageful, yeah. I don't know. Up to you to think about it. For the people who organize festivals and we tackle the topic of climate emergency, which I do lots of times and many of you too, next time we do it, we have more knowledge and we can be more critical about it, just to choose wisely what we show, what we tell, what we ask the artists to do. So that's good.
Maybe a last comment.
Yeah.
That's something we talked about yesterday. I think it's interesting. Well, I work with artists with several projects, and something we realized is that artists get the information about the climate change through journalists. And the journalist message is not actually our message. It's a message that has already been modified for a number of reasons. So something we're doing in my center, in the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, is that we're trying to bridge the gap straight from the artist to the scientist. So any idea on how to do that in your local labs, in your initiatives, even if you want to, I mean, you can give you our mails and you have any question about, I've seen this news, what do you think about that? Feel free, I will try to reply. Very often we don't have a clue about this, but we can maybe point you towards people who knows about that. So I don't know, but I think it's important to open this bridge, to come back to these complex messages, because then as artists you can start with a primal source of information, not with this modified thing. I think that's everything we want to talk about.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Big applause.